Wow, wow, wow. Right from the beginning, he starts to just knock me off my feet. This is powerful.
Lately, money secrets. And I need to tell you something that's been weighing on me. I've sat at tables with people who have serious wealth, and I mean serious, the kind.
He sat at tables where people had serious wealth, so much wealth that it didn't even come up in conversation as a need or a want or whatever.
Where money isn't even a conversation anymore because
Where money isn't even a conversation anymore. That's serious wealth.
there's just so much of it. And there's this thing they do when someone asks about money, this silence, this careful choosing of words. And I used to get frustrated, you know? I'd think, why won't they just say what they know?
Why won't they just say what they know? And what he's going to say in a moment here is just, man, it's something I've known, but I've not been responsible for.
Why won't they help? But then I realized something that changed everything for me. They're not keeping secrets to hurt people. They're protecting something sacred.
They're protecting something sacred. Is righteous money sacred? I believe it is. And I think it needs to be used with judgment and skill.
And I don't know, man. Maybe they've learned that some knowledge, it has to be earned. It's like they've discovered
Some knowledge has to be earned. They've discovered something about money.
something about money that most people aren't ready to hear. Something that would actually be dangerous in the wrong hands. And they're waiting.
Dangerous in the wrong hands. Remember, money can be used for good and for ill. It just depends on the user.
Waiting to see who's ready for the responsibility.
Who is ready for the responsibility to handle serious amounts of money? Wow, think about that. Think about that. Who is ready for the restored gospel and serious godly power? Think about that. Have to be proven, tried, and tested before they have godly power. And that's why the great trials are so necessary. God knows that. God knows that. Ah, I got to stop this for a moment. Oh, this is blowing my mind.
That comes with real abundance. What
That comes with real abundance. The responsibility that comes with real abundance.
if I told you the Bible explains exactly why they stay quiet? What if these ancient words reveal the exact reason why wealth knowledge gets protected instead of shared? Because it does.
Why did Amazon send me $20,000? Because I use
Stay hidden until someone proves they can.
Some secrets have to stay hidden until they can prove they can handle them. Some secrets have to stay hidden until they can prove they handle them. And that's the same with revealed knowledge and divine knowledge. Think about that. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Wow.
Handle them. And what if you're ready now? What if everything you've been through, every financial struggle, every moment of wondering why some people just seem to flow with money while you fight for every dollar, what if all of that was preparing you for this conversation? I want to share what I discovered, something that changed how I see money, how I see the people who have it, and how I see myself.
Wow, I gotta hold on. This is just blowing me. All right, let's continue.
Because I think you deserve to know what they know. I think you've earned the right to understand why they keep these secrets and what those secrets actually are. But you need to understand something first. Once you know this, once you really understand what I'm about to share with you, you become responsible for it. You become one of the secret keepers.
You become responsible for it. You become one of the secret keepers. Wow.
And that's not something to take lightly. So let me tell you what I started noticing. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. In Hollywood, everyone talks about money. I mean everyone, the agents, the managers, the producers, they're all talking deals and numbers and percentages. But the really wealthy, the ones with generational money, they barely mention it. They'll
Generational money. Barely mention it.
sit through entire dinners where everyone else is comparing salaries, and they'll just listen. Like they're watching a play they've already seen. And I started watching them, really watching how they move, how they think, how they breathe around money. There's this calmness to them, this ease, like money is just there, like air. You know what struck me? They dress down, not up. The guy worth 200 million is wearing jeans and a t-shirt while everyone else is trying to look successful. And when someone brings up investments or business opportunities, they listen politely, but there's this detachment, like they're operating from a completely different place. I remember being at this party once, and this tech billionaire was there. Someone asked him about cryptocurrency, and instead of diving into analysis like everyone else would, he just smiled and said, "I don't really think about money anymore." And everyone laughed like it was a joke, but I saw his eyes. He meant it. He literally didn't think about money the way the rest of us do. The thing is, when they do make financial decisions, it's fast, intuitive. No stress, no analysis paralysis. It's like they're plugged into some frequency the rest of us can't hear. And that's when it hit me. They're not hiding money secrets, and they're protecting consciousness secrets. Most people are trapped in this illusion about money. This matrix where they believe money is scarce, where they have to fight for it, where having it defines their worth. But these people, they've unplugged from that entire system. They see money as something else entirely. I don't know, man. It's like they're playing a completely different game, not just with different rules, but on a different board, in a different dimension. And the crazy part, they're not trying to exclude anyone from this game. They're just waiting for people to realize the game they've been playing isn't the real game at all. And that's when I started searching, not for money advice, not for investment tips.
Wow, let's listen to this again. It's so powerful. So powerful. Listen to this again.
And the crazy part, they're not trying to exclude anyone from this game. They're just waiting for people to realize the game they've been playing isn't the real game at all.
The game they've been playing isn't the really game at all. They're on another board, another dimension.
And that's when I started searching, not for money advice, not for investment tips, but for the source code of abundance, for whatever it was that allowed some people to step outside the money matrix while others stayed trapped inside it. Because I realized if consciousness creates reality, then there has to be a consciousness that creates abundance. And these people had found it. So I started digging, but not where everyone else was looking. Everyone's talking about investments and budgets and side hustles, and I get it, I really do. But that's not where the real secret lies. That's like trying to understand music by analyzing the mechanics of a piano. You can learn all the technical stuff, but you'll miss the soul of it. I kept thinking about those wealthy people, about that ease they had around money, and I started wondering, what if money is energy? What if it flows like water, like electricity, and wealthy people have learned how to move with it instead of fighting against it? I started calling it financial Aikido in my head. You know Aikido? It's that martial art where you don't oppose force, you redirect it, you work with the energy that's already there. And I thought, what if that's what they're doing with money? What if instead of trying to grab it and hold it and control it, they've learned to dance with it? Because I noticed something else about these people. They never seemed desperate about money. Even when they were making big financial moves, there was this trust, like they knew something about how abundance works that the rest of us are missing.
It's trust about abundance that the rest of us are missing. Wow. Wow. Oh my Lord. Wow. It's just mind blowing. Mind blowing. Just mind blowing. Okay, Canoe.
And that's when I started wondering, is there a consciousness that attracts money? Is there a way of being in the world that naturally draws abundance? Because if consciousness creates reality, and I believe it does, then there has to be an abundance consciousness, right? So I went looking for it, not in business books or finance courses, but in philosophy, in ancient wisdom, in spiritual texts, because these principles, whatever they were, they felt old, really old, like they'd been around forever, hidden in plain sight. And then
This is how
it's interesting. I stumbled into biblical wisdom about money, and I don't know why nobody talks about this, but the Bible is absolutely packed with financial principles. I mean, packed more than almost any other topic. Why didn't anyone tell me this? I'm reading these ancient words about money and abundance and stewardship, and it's like finding the user manual for prosperity that everyone forgot existed. And the crazy part, these principles, they're exactly what I'd been observing in those wealthy people. They were following biblical money principles without even knowing it. It was like watching someone intuitively play music perfectly and then finding the sheet music that explains exactly what they were doing. And that's when this thought hit me that changed everything. What if money isn't material at all? What if money is spiritual energy disguised as paper and numbers? What if abundance is
Spiritual energy. Oh no. I gotta go back here a bit. It's just too powerful.
we're doing? And that's when this thought hit me that changed everything. What if money isn't material at all? What if money is spiritual energy disguised as paper and numbers? What if abundance is actually a spiritual state that manifests in the physical world? Sacred economics, that's what I started calling it. Because if money is spiritual energy,
Sacred economics. Sacred economics. Spiritual energy. Wow.
then there are spiritual laws that govern it. Ancient laws, universal laws, laws that some people understand intuitively and others have to learn. I kept digging deeper into these biblical principles about money, about stewardship and abundance and the flow of resources, and I could feel something shifting in me.
The flow of resources. Something shifting in him.
Like I was remembering something I'd always known but forgotten. And then I found this verse, and everything clicked into place. Everything I'd observed, everything I'd been searching for, everything those wealthy people seemed to understand. It was all right there in these ancient words, hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. And then I found it, this verse that stopped me cold, Luke 16:11, Jesus speaking, and then he says,
Okay, go back here, I gotta get it here. What is it?
sight for thousands of years. And then I found it, this verse that stopped me cold, Luke 16:11, Jesus speaking, and then he says, so if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? I had to read it 3 times because this was it. This was the answer to everything I'd been observing. This is why they keep the secret. Think about it. If you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, money is a test, money is a proving ground.
Wow. Have you been trustworthy in handling the resources and wealth you already have? I have not. I have not. Listen to this again. Listen to this again.
And it was all right there in these ancient words, hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. And then I found it, this verse that stopped me cold, Luke 16:11, Jesus speaking, and then he says, so if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches?
I'm going to go there. I got to go there. Hold on. Well, here's the verse, Luke 16:11. If therefore ye have not been faithful in unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust true riches? There be man unfaithful, that is another man's. Who shall give unto you of their own? Man can't serve 2 masters. Anyhow, I gotta go to plainer version of this. Oh, when I go to look this up in context a little bit, it's a little different. It says, so who's not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust him on true riches? Trustworthiness, the verse implies the integrity of managing material resources. Spiritual implications suggest that one handles earthly possessions reflects the capability to manage spiritual wealth. Wow. Wow. This is a weakness of mine. And I've got to really work on it. This changes everything. Again, I'll repeat this. Trustworthiness. The verse emphasizes the need for integrity in managing material resources. Spiritual implications. It suggests how one handles earthly possessions reflects their capacity to manage spiritual wealth. Wow. Wow. Okay, I really need to look at this better.
I had to read it 3 times because this was it. This was the answer to everything I'd been observing. This is why they keep the secret. Think about it. If you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, money as a test, money as a proving ground, money as preparation for something bigger, and who will trust you with true riches? There's something beyond money, something that money is actually training us for. This is why those wealthy people stay quiet. They're not keeping it from you. They're waiting to see if you can handle it, because they've learned something that took me years to understand. You can't give someone...
Wow, think about this. Wow, my weaknesses have been stripped and showed boldly before the world and before the Lord. Wow, I have to seriously review and understand and appreciate this. Okay, let us continue.
Wealth consciousness, they have to earn it. And I realized even Jesus did this. He spoke in parables, right? He could have just laid out the truth plainly, but he didn't. Truth has to be discovered, not handed over. Because when you discover something yourself, when you earn that understanding.
Let's back up here a bit. You have to discover this truth on your own, and you have to be accountable for it on your own.
Jesus did this. He spoke in parables, right? He could have just laid out the truth plainly, but he didn't. Truth has to be discovered, not handed over. Because when you discover something yourself, when you earn that understanding, it becomes part of you in a way that just being told never can. It's like, imagine...
You have to earn that understanding and be held accountable for it and appreciate it and live it.
You learn to ride a bike by having someone explain balance to you versus actually falling and getting back up until your body understood. The knowledge that comes from experience, that's different, that's permanent. Money follows character, and character can't be taught, only developed. That's what I was seeing in those wealthy people. They had developed the character that naturally attracts abundance.
They had developed the character that naturally attracts abundance. Wow. Wow.
And that character, it had to be built through actually handling money, through being tested by it. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this wasn't the only verse. I kept reading and found more pieces of this puzzle. Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the...
Proverbs 21:5. Writing it down. The plans of the diligent lead to profit.
Diligent lead to profit. The parable of talents in Matthew 25, where
Parable of talents in Matthew 25.
The servants who were faithful with what they were given received more.
Are you faithful to what you've been given? Luke 6:38.
Luke 6:38, give and it will be given to you. These aren't random financial tips. This is a complete system, a consciousness operating system for abundance. And it all comes back to this idea of stewardship.
Now this is important. And not just any stewardship. We're talking about righteous, accountable stewardship. We're talking about divine stewardship that edifies and lifts and moves us upward and forward and outward.
Of being trusted with resources. And that
Trusted with resources. What resources do we have that we're not using well, that we need to improve on? And that's when I understood what I started calling.
That's when I understood what I started calling the stewardship paradox. The more willing you are to lose money for the right reasons, the more it finds you.
The willing you are to lose money for the right reasons, the more it finds you. For the right reasons, for divine reasons, divine principles, to build up the kingdom. So what are those right reasons? What are those godly reasons?
The wealthy people I'd been watching, they weren't clinging to money. They were stewarding it. They were willing to give it up, to invest it, to risk it, because they understood that money held tightly becomes stagnant, but money released with wisdom returns multiplied. They had
Money released with wisdom is multiplied. Wow. Wow. Money released with wisdom is multiplied. Wow. 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 Let's go back here. So powerful.
invest it, to risk it, because they understood that money held tightly becomes stagnant, but money released with wisdom returns multiplied. They had cracked this ancient code that abundance flows to those who can be trusted with it, and that trust, it's not earned through accumulation, it's earned through character, through proving you can handle resources responsibly. I thought about all those times I'd seen.
Wow, wow. Wow, this is powerful. Let's go back here.
Returns multiplied. They had cracked this ancient code that abundance flows to those who can be trusted with it, and that trust, it's not earned through accumulation, it's earned through character, through proving you can handle resources responsibly. I thought about all those times I'd seen wealthy people make decisions that seemed crazy to everyone else, giving away huge amounts, investing in seemingly impossible ventures, walking away from guaranteed returns for ethical reasons. I used to think they were just eccentric, but now I understood. They were operating from this deeper wisdom. They knew that money is a test, and passing the test means sometimes choosing principles over profit. Because here's what I finally got, the true riches that Jesus...
Choosing principles over profit.
Jesus was talking about. That's not just about heaven or the afterlife. That's about the ability to impact lives, to create change, to steward resources that affect thousands or millions of people. That's about being trusted with influence, with platform, with the power to shape reality. And if you can't be trusted with a few dollars, if you hoard them, if you stress about them, if you compromise your values for them, how can you be trusted with the kind of resources that could change the world? This is why they keep this.
Wow, wow. Oh my Lord. Again.
That's about the ability to impact lives, to create change, to steward resources that affect thousands or millions of people. That's about being trusted with influence, with platform, with the power to shape reality. And if you can't be trusted with a few dollars, if you hoard them, if you stress about them, if you compromise your values for them, how can you be trusted with the kind of resources that could change the world? This is why they keep the secret, not because they want to exclude people, but because this knowledge comes with massive responsibility, and they're protecting both the knowledge and the people who aren't ready for that responsibility yet. So let me break this down for you, because once I understood this biblical framework, everything about money started making sense. And I mean everything.
Oh, I gotta stop. This is just mind-blowing. Oh, I have so many things going through my head and mind, inspiration-wise and otherwise.
First thing I realized, money is meditation. Every single financial decision you make reveals your true beliefs about abundance, not what you say you believe.
Wow.
I started paying attention to my own spending, and it was like looking in a mirror. Every dollar I spent was a vote for what I believed about reality. When I hoarded money out of fear, I was voting for scarcity. When I spent recklessly, I was voting for unworthiness. When I invested wisely, I was voting for abundance. When I gave generously, I was voting for flow. Your bank account, it's literally a mirror of your soul's relationship with abundance.
Wow, I gotta go back and repeat this. All right, let's continue.
And those wealthy people I'd been watching, they understood this intuitively. They knew that money follows consciousness, not the other way around. They weren't trying to get rich. They were being rich in consciousness first, and the money followed. I remember this one conversation with a filmmaker who'd built a massive production company. Someone asked him how he got so wealthy, and he said something that stuck with me. I didn't chase money. I chased being the kind of person money could trust. At the time, I thought it was just a clever line. Now I understand. He was describing consciousness. But here's where it gets really profound. And this took me a while to accept because it sounded too simple. Luke 6:38. Give, and it will be given to you. This isn't just about charity or tithing. This is describing the fundamental flow of abundance in the universe. I started calling it economic karma. What you do with money, it comes back, always. Not always immediately, not always in the form you expect, but it comes back. And the wealthy people I knew, they understood this flow. That's why they're often so generous. Not because they're trying to look good, but because they've learned that generosity creates circulation, and circulation creates abundance. It's not about getting money, it's about moving it. Money that sits still dies. Money that flows multiplies. I started watching how money moved through the lives of different people, and the pattern was undeniable. The people who held tightest to money, it slipped through their fingers. The people who let it flow through them with wisdom and purpose, it kept coming back in larger amounts. This completely changed how I thought about spending, investing, giving, everything.
Wow. Think about this again. It's pretty powerful.
Dies. Money that flows multiplies. I started watching how money moved through the lives of different people, and the pattern was undeniable. The people who held tightest to money, it slipped through their fingers. The people who let it flow through them with wisdom and purpose, it kept coming back in larger amounts. This completely changed how I thought about spending, investing, giving, everything. I realized the universe isn't trying to keep money from people, it's trying to find people who can be trusted to circulate it wisely. And that brings me to something that honestly blew my mind when I finally understood it. Matthew 25:21.
Something changes after.
With a few things, I will put you in charge of many things. This isn't just a nice spiritual saying. This is describing a cosmic accountability system. There's something almost mystical about how faithfulness with little creates faithfulness with much. It's like the universe is constantly running background checks on how you handle resources.
Faithfulness with little creates faithfulness with much. Line upon line, precept upon precept.
And based on your track record, it decides how much to trust you with. I started thinking of it as abundance clearance levels. Like the universe has security clearance for abundance, and it's based entirely on your track record with smaller amounts. How do you treat the money you have? How do you handle opportunities? How do you steward relationships? All of it matters. All of it's being observed.
It's just mind-blowing. It's powerful. It's powerful.
This explains so much about what I'd been seeing, why some people seem to attract opportunities while others don't, why some people can lose everything and rebuild quickly while others struggle with small amounts their whole lives. It's not luck, it's not connections, it's clearance levels. I thought about my own journey, all those years when I felt like money was this mysterious force that sometimes showed up and sometimes didn't. I wasn't understanding the system. I was treating money like it was random instead of recognizing it as responsive to consciousness, responsive to character, responsive to stewardship. And here's what really got to me. When you understand this system, money stops being about money. It becomes about character development. Every financial decision becomes an opportunity to demonstrate trustworthiness. Every challenge becomes training for greater responsibility. Those wealthy people, they weren't just accumulating dollars, they were accumulating trust, universal trust. And the universe responds to trust by providing more resources to steward. I realized I'd been playing a completely different game than them. I was playing get money. They were playing become trustworthy with money. And the second game, that's the one that actually creates lasting abundance. So here's what happened when I started actually living these principles. And I have to tell you, it was like learning to breathe differently. I stopped trying to get money and started trying to serve it. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. Instead of
Stop trying to get money, but I started serving it. I think you can serve the Lord in righteousness, greater degrees of righteousness and greater degrees of stewardship, depending on how diligent you are with what you already have. Interesting.
asking, how can I make more money? I started asking, how can I be a better steward of what I have? Instead of, how do I accumulate wealth?
How can I be a better steward of what I have? I'm going to end it here. This is good enough for me. About 17 minutes into his recording. How can I be a better steward of what I have? Well, I sure have missed that in some ways.